the one and only sexy mama, LaDonna Raeh.
LaDonna Raeh Show.
The one and only sexy mama, LaDonna Raeh.
LaDonna Raeh Show. Watch this. Welcome to the LaDonna Raeh Show. I'm your host, LaDonna Raeh, and I want to thank you for tuning in and watching. Those of you that have been waiting for the next episode, well, I really do appreciate you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you share this with your friends. You can download or actually copy the link from the YouTube channel. And those of you that are watching on Instagram, I say hello to you. You are my little friends on Instagram. This actually is my first time going live on Instagram through the streaming platform that I use. I use EV Mux. They're not paying me, so I don't really talk about it. But today's episode is a near and dear one for me. You know, the LaDonna Raeh Show talks to content creators from all over the world. And we tell it like it is and have true stories. And in getting the perspectives of people everywhere, let me tell you what I found out. I'll give you a little context. I had my first child when I was 16 years old. Teenage pregnancy. At 16, I remember finding out that I was pregnant. I thought it would go away if I just didn't say anything or acknowledge it. And 9 or so months later, I had a baby boy. That baby boy was born in November. I remember watching my stomach get bigger. I couldn't believe it because I was so skinny all the time. And I remember the day I held him and said, I'm going to be the best mother I can be to you. Well, that day I looked him in his eyes, his little big brown eyes. And can you say little big at the same time? Maybe. And he looked up at me and he looked like he heard me. And so I assumed every decision I made was for my son. And then I started having these issues, and that was with being myself with a baby at 16 because it was frowned upon big time. There was no teen mom reality show, none of that. It was just, you messed up. You shamed the family name because it was not prevalent in my family to go about things that way. So 2 years later, I got pregnant again. Oh, well, I slipped and fell. What can I say? But seriously, I was with someone that accepted me for being a teenage mom and thought I was, awesome. And it's like I needed to hear that because I had been beat down and beat up so much for getting pregnant the first time. Well, that allowed me to really take a stance and say, wait a minute, I got 2 hands, I got 2 boys, that's it for me. So I had 2 beautiful baby boys, and everything I did, I pushed through to make sure I could provide for them. I was so focused on providing that maybe I missed out on nurturing. I don't know. But who can tell that story better than anyone than my own son? And we're talking about my oldest son, the one that I held in my arms that day and promised him I would be the best mother I could be. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my oldest son, LaDonte. Step into the frame, son.
Wow, talk about an entrance.
Yeah. You got to pull your mic up to where you are, though. I may have miscalculated.
Oops.
I still thought you were that little boy.
I guess I grew a couple inches.
Just a few. Well, come on over in the frame. And I just want to introduce my oldest son. You guys, so in total, I have four sons. And really, that's all my children, four sons. I have two and two. Maybe for a short period of time, you guys were in the house at the same time. But it was you and your brother, your younger brother. And then suddenly, years later, when you were 16, is that correct? I got married and then had started having another family. And that was two more boys.
Yep, I was 16. I was either 16 or 15 around that time.
Yeah,
Probably 16.
16.
Hmm.
All right. So tell us about who you are. Tell us about, because I know who you are, but I want to hear from your perspective. I may think one thing and it may be something completely different. So I want to hear this.
Who am I? I'm LaDonte Prince. Um, that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Who am I? It's a deep question to me. I ask myself every single day. And I feel like that definition changes, but parts of it does stay constant. But I would say that I'm just someone that just believes that I could do anything that I put my mind to, and it just always happens that way. So, I'm a blessed individual. I don't make excuses. I didn't grow up around people that made excuses. I grew up around, well, really just my mom and you, mom, and like you just got things done, no matter what. Like it didn't matter what the statistics said. It didn't matter what we didn't have. It was just you always made a possibility. So I grew up watching that. So whenever I hear an excuse about why something cannot be accomplished, I just call a spade a spade. I just say that's not that's not true. And I instead of talking about it, I just do it and become it. So that's pretty much who I am. I'm a go getter. I'm an achiever. I'm an activator. I'm just the one that can do anything.
And I'm really proud of you because just going back, I remember you didn't even start talking until you were a good 2 years old. And you waited. It's like you were at that time you were a big Barney fan, and those were your words. The Barney. I'll never forget it. Seeing you run around in your Barney pajamas, and it'd be cute if I had some pictures to show, but they are not available. I know they're somewhere. They're on some computer because I've been digitizing everything. And then just watching you grow up and be a big brother to your younger brother was an amazing opportunity for me because I remember asking you guys at some point, I think you were 11, and Lakari, my other son, was 9. And by the way, I've been a single teenage mother the whole time. Um, your father and I, we were young, 16, and unfortunately, his family or his mother made a very strong comment and basically denounced the fact that she even has a grandchild. It can we can go into that.
Yeah. It was a tough time. Like growing up in for the majorities the South Side of Chicago, but and around like just we were always moving, like every 2 to 3 years for the most part. But the hardest thing to really grapple to was just getting accepted.
How'd your mic get so low?
Oh,
It just
I gotta
keeps
fix it.
dropping. We need to hear this because your voice is
Right.
loosen
So
it up.
here I'll just
Yeah, loosen it up. Loosen that
loosen
up.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. There you go. Right there. And then I'm gonna. Does it
Okay.
tilt anymore? Or is that it? Oh wow.
And then
It's not tilting
tighten
anymore.
tighten it.
No. Yeah. There you go. Loose like that.
Okay.
There you go. Now we can raise it.
Okay.
Okay. Now tighten it. There you go. Okay. Perfect. Now that should work.
Right. So growing up in mainly the South Side of Chicago was very difficult, but I would say the hardest part about growing up was just having a sincere family that demonstrated love. The challenge about being, at least for my mom, just watching her grow up as a single mother at
Yeah,
16,
because I was growing up too.
and I watched that,
Hmm.
so like she was really my first example of just like what does it mean to actually live. And I watched my mom struggle most of the time. I watched people pretty much throw rocks at her, metaphorically, um, in a sense that it was just very violent, and it really wasn't too much love that my mom would receive or I would receive. It just kind of seemed that there was like some curse upon us. People would look at my mom like, okay, she's 16, she has children, she's not going to be anybody. So what's the point of investing love into her? And then basically, I was I was the son of my mom, so they basically would pass that same
Treated you the
curse to
same
me.
way. Yeah.
So I kind of grew up not really, I didn't really understand love too much, just
Mm.
to be fair. My mom, she was always working, so she wasn't really available. And when she would be, she's tired. Of course, you're gonna be tired. But she also made a lot of sacrifices to show me a form of love and a form of sacrifice. So, for example, I remember a time when we didn't have a refrigerator, and we would leave the food on the balcony to.
Or a stove. We didn't have a refrigerator or a stove. We had a microwave.
Food was limited, and whenever my mom would come home, she wouldn't eat, but she made sure that I ate. So like that sacrifice, but you could hear her stomach growling as she would go into the room to basically go to sleep in pain and of not eating. But to me, that sacrifice, that's how I learned love in a form of sacrificing. But outside of that, it was very difficult for me to understand love. So I ended up basically not even having a desire for it because I didn't really know what it was. So I just kind of became more about like, accomplishments, school, like just things, video games, like that was my thing, but achievements. So the video games got passed into school, and I was always like the top of my class. I had an opportunity to skip a few grades, but I just didn't really need what other people needed,
Mm.
um, for a very long time. And it just, I kind of always like felt like a little like an alien. And even to this day, I still kind of carry a lot of those feelings. And in some parts, I'm grateful that I'm not so attached to love in that way. I don't really use it like a drug like that. I see a lot of people that they hurt deeply because of a loss of love, but for me, I don't really have that problem. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I stay like neutral to it
Mm.
and just use. What I've learned is, we could always like complain about what our story is, but that's not going to change anything. We could always wish that we had a different story, but that's not going to change anything. We could try to follow someone else's story. That's just going to make things worse. So I realize it's just better to accept my story for what it is and make the most out of it.
Now, when Ladante shared that with me, I truly was shocked. I When he said he didn't experience love, he was only pushed to succeed, excel, education, and the hugs were missing. And I I was shocked. I just knew that that was wrong. He didn't remember it correctly, and I remember how I felt as a young parent. I felt like I would intentionally try to show my children how to be tough, strong, and self sufficient. And and I know I said I love you, but I probably didn't coddle them like they probably needed. And this is what happens with, and the reason why I wanted to do this is because you will find out what kind of parent you really were when your adult children tell you. And instead of denying it and defending it, it's best to listen and go back in your mind and recall those moments that were missed or possibly missed, and understand that their experience is their experience. It's not made up. It is how they felt. And so I have to respect that, because one thing that I could not and could never do is raise a boy to be a man. And I thought I could. Happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day. I was kind of indoctrinated into that whole thing until I woke up one day and was like, it's not Father's Day for me. I'm not the father. And unfortunately, as I was saying before, your dad's family was against even acknowledging that they had a grandchild. So it made it difficult for your father to get involved because, again, he was young and he was dependent on his parents or his mother. And he had to go the way that they went. And later, I ended up having another child by someone else. And they decided to vacate the premises. But there's no premises to vacate because at 16 and 18, you don't live together. You live with your parents. But the easiest thing to do is to adopt what has been told to our community for so long, and that's mama's baby, daddy's maybe. And the moment you say that to a young girl, she will probably expect that. And you say that to a young man, he's probably going to adopt that as well. So you continue with this generational curse that goes on and on. But I will say that I noticed a difference in our community when it came to fathers stepping up. When the Million Man March took place, if I'm recalling correctly, I believe that was in 1994. And that's when 1 million Black men showed up at Washington, D.C. at the Capitol. And it was for the purpose of strengthening families, not being disregarded, dismissed as fathers. If you look at the public assistance program and how it was structured to remove the father from the home, or any man from the home for that matter. You dangle a carrot in front of a woman and you say, listen, I can give you guaranteed food, rent, money. All you got to do is make sure you don't have a man in the picture, meaning no shoes, no clothes, no signs of a man. And the women that lost trust, or should I say respect for their own men, because the government came along, just like massa, and said, we got you. He just can't be around. So our communities have suffered over and over, and this was long before you were born, sweetie. It was a strategy to get money from the government. But when you get money from the government and you got the man out of the house, where's the man at? He's in the streets. So if he's in the streets and his son sees him in the streets, his son is going to think that's normal. And so now they've learned, this is learned behavior, and now they go on to be the exact same way. There's very similar stories with a lot of men that are my age during that time when fatherhood was not looked upon as honorable. It was looked upon as, look, if I'm not around, I'm just not around, because we had the subsidies or the dependency on the government that got into our heads. I'm not even saying it got in my head because I had no home to show that there was no man for. I was 16. I was still living with my mother, who was a single mother, who couldn't show remnants of a man living with her. I mean, this was just on and on and on. So when I became old enough to get my own space, because I had to fight for you, my mother didn't want me to take you with me because she felt like, since I had 2 children, that I must not be fit to be a mother, right? But I had to fight, and I do mean physically, to get you to come with me because my mother and I got into the worst fight. My father had to break it up. It was ugly, but this was many, many years ago, and we left. Yes, we did. I stayed with a relative, and then I got my own place. Not in that order, because there was a time when I just had you, and I stayed with a best friend of mine. Her family took me in. Why wouldn't you want to go live with your best friend versus a old, elder aunt? So that's what I did. But I was already pregnant again. And when I shared that information with her mother, she was like, I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, "That's a hard pill to swallow." She was very disappointed in me, but it had already happened. After that, I did move in with my aunt Flo, and I can honestly say that she molded me to be responsible when it came to my credit, my money, instead of like I didn't want to be on welfare. So guess what I did? I worked my butt off. I worked. I was always at work. And I didn't even go to college until I was 20. And I got two babies. I'm like, I need to make money. I ain't got time to sit in somebody's classroom. But I also looked at the future and said, if I don't sit in someone's classroom, what kind of job am I going to be able to get every time? Because those wanted ads, college degree, college education, wasn't like it was in my mother and father's days. So I had to make a decision. And that's when I enrolled in college. I went to DeVry University. I wanted to be on campus. I would have gone to Southern Illinois University, but it was a college town that was a party town. And I felt like I would be left out because I had a baby. So I decided to go to DeVry, where I could work and go to school at night. And that's how I did that. It was tough, and it was an accelerated program back then. I didn't finish, and then I went back. And that was the hardest push. You and I and your brother were in school together. We were growing up together. But the hardest thing that for me was to watch you all grow up without a dad. And I tried to overcompensate for that. And just for the record, we always lived in the suburbs, with the exception of me living with my aunt. But when I got my own places, I was in the suburbs because that's what I knew. I've been in the suburbs since I was 8 years old. And we lived in Riverdale. We moved to South Holland. We've lived in Skokie. We've lived in, I feel like I'm missing something. But yeah, we did move a lot. I'm not even ashamed because I had to go where my money could go. And it was not a lot of it. And then we did move to the city at one point before we moved to Skokie. We were on 80th and Carpenter. We moved there in the wintertime. I was like, oh, this is a safe block. There's an abandoned building. It's boarded up. I'm like, it's right across the street, so no neighbors can look in my window. Yeah, I didn't think that crack addicts would be in there. And when the snow melted, that there would be a drive-by shooting where a pregnant girl got killed. Once that happened, I went to my boss and said, can I get a raise so I can live out here? And that was in Lincolnwood. Ended up moving to Skokie. They gave me a raise so I can move out there. And you guys went to school in Skokie. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to not have to worry about the gun violence and the riffraff that was on the south side of Chicago. However, there was a disconnect because while we were in Skokie, you guys were learning outside of your culture. Can you tell us about that? How was that experience for you?
So I actually didn't know that I was black until like really after we moved from Skokie. I had no idea. I didn't really realize it. I just saw we were all kids. We were all just in school. Um, we had different interests. Like I had a friend that was like Korean. I had another friend, Alex. Man, he was a
I remember Alex Sabali.
little bad man. Um, yeah, I just had a lot of like I had a crush to like a Filipina girl. Um, it was like white people. There's like one black man, one black boy on the end of the block. I would hang out with him sometimes, but
He was Jamaican, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
his
that
name
was
was Joel.
yeah. I knew
Joel.
his father.
Yeah, like so I had a mixed group of friends, but we never really discussed black culture. I didn't understand what black culture was or any of that.
Or even if it existed.
I just had no concept of it.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't in my mind at all. Um, I was only around like 8 at that time to about 10. I want to say. That's when I was really just starting to form my brain. And my thing at that time was Pokemon. So, if you had a Pokemon card,
Wait, your brain has been forming since you were in the womb, but you're saying
right,
form your own concept of who you were or identify with who you are.
with like the race card, like
I
I just didn't
understand.
have like a concept of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just more so school and just playing outside and playing Pokemon during that time, and it was like a Jewish community, so it was just never like a thing that was discussed. But I'm sure it was the real truth of it was that I just didn't understand or even notice the effects of race during that time. And I was also really I was gifted. So, for example, we had a music class. We had to play Beethoven, like Ode to Joy, and I just heard it like one time, and I played it by ear. And I was like the gifted child of the school, so I got a lot of praise for being really intelligent. And I'm not sure why I got the praise like that, but I was basically considered a prodigy during that time. So I didn't really notice any of the barriers during that time, but we'll talk about the actual race card in the next chapter when we actually moved to um, after Skokie.
Yeah. Well, and see, I'm listening to you and I'm like, wow, I really wanted to shield you all from being, oh, it's hard to say it, from being black. Because even at that point, you have to remember, I was a young mother and I was still trying to find my own identity. And of course, I went to Beasley Academic Center. I didn't go to a HBCU. My mother raised me in the suburbs, but we had gotten hit with BB guns through our windows, being called the N word by whites that drove by and threw bottles at me while I was riding my bike. So I didn't want my kids to go through that. So I felt like if I tell them how great of a person, a human being they are, when they woke up, I would say, "Good morning, beautiful." I mean, I tried all of those things and I wasn't even trying them. That was just how I made up in my mind that they were just going to be beautiful human beings. But then they started getting older. I remember your teacher said, LaDante, because he's always been on the honor roll, LaDante, he certainly is a well-dressed kid. Well, like I love boys and men's fashion. I've always loved it. And I always wanted you guys to feel good about yourself. I didn't want it to look like you were coming from a home that was broken. You know what I'm saying? So there's almost too many layers that I was trying to cover. I remember enrolling you in school and telling them your father died. You remember that? Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you.
Mm.
And it was because he was completely out of the picture. And I had this story. And I was like, I didn't want you all to be treated like you were from a broken home because the difference between the applications in the black communities and the white communities was mother's name, father's name, mother's contact information, father's contact information. And it was required. So I had to put something. I put deceased. I did not want you all to be treated. And they were, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, we lost him a while ago. Like the day my son was born, we lost him because he lost his mind when he found out I was pregnant. But, with all of this going on, I feel like I did you a disservice by not introducing you to your blackness. When did you find out you were black?
So we had moved out of Skokie into the south suburbs, And then finally, I enrolled into a school that was majority black, and I saw that people looked like they had the same color skin as me. And I remember having the epiphany, like, wow, these people look kind of like me, like they have the same type of hair, the same type of skin. And so I was about 10 years old
Oh, you remember I used to perm your hair? I told you it was conditioner.
during that time.
No, when you were in kindergarten, it was
Oh,
terrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
so during that time, it was different. Um, so I would interact with the kids, and they didn't like the way that I talked. They always would say things like you talk proper or
Mm-hmm.
you talk white, and I didn't understand what that was. Like what is proper, what is white. So I was very confused, but then also um, it was like the things that they were into, like they had like this wit. They could like talk about somebody and like it's funny, like the class would laugh, and I didn't have like that type of wit, so I couldn't like do it back at them. I didn't even know to do that back to them. I
Mm-hmm.
was just in kind of like in awe still, like that these people look like me, and I think that was like a big culture shock for me. So I just eventually I didn't really make friends. I didn't make any friends actually at that school.
But you
Um,
had a lot of friends at the white school.
right at the white
Yeah.
school, they praised
You
me
were
like
Mr. Proper. I mean, Mr. Popular.
I was the king. Like
Yeah.
they it's like they almost, yeah, they praised me there. So like here it was different. Like it was just the opposite type of treatment, and I didn't really know how to process it. So I just
Dealt with it.
did what I did best, which was I was in the books, I was in the school. I would be the first to finish like a test.
You would, and you stayed on the honor roll.
Right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
school was just my thing. I was just school was just like a game to me. It was like you just that's the game you play. The goal is to get an A. So that's just what I did. The teachers, they took a liking to me, but really at that point I was trying to just understand, what to do, because these people, they keep talking about me, they keep like cracking the jokes, they keep talking about like how I speak. They don't want to be around me.
Mm.
Um so it was
I didn't even know that. I just thought everything was good
they would
socially
right,
because
like
your grades were good. I'm like, why would you look into their social life? It's you must be doing well.
they would bully me.
Mm.
It got to the point where it's like everyone would bully me. The guys would bully me, and then later the girls would bully me, and that was like the crazy part. They're all like just ganging up on me, and then finally, one day I asked like one of the girls, her name was Kenyatta. This was in fifth grade. I said, hey, I finally snapped. I said, why are you guys bothering me? Like, why are you guys picking on
Did
me?
you say bothering?
I think I said like, why are you guys
Okay, you
picking on
said it.
me?
Okay.
Yeah, and
I
then
got a feeling you said something else.
no, I didn't curse. I
Oh,
was
okay.
very proper. I really
Mm-hmm.
was. Um, but she said, because we like you. And I didn't understand, like, how can you like me, but you're talking about me? So I was really confused. So I really didn't know how to process that either.
Mm.
But and then eventually the basketball team would pick on me, the football team would pick on me. One time we took like the teacher would take us all to the bathroom to do the bathroom break, and when the teacher wouldn't look, that's when the basketball team would jump me and slam me to the lockers. And then one day I just got fed up with it, and I finally retaliated back, and I got like the leader of that, and they never did that again. But then the teacher came out, we pretend like nothing happened. So I would start to like develop these kind of like outbursts
Mm.
of anger during this time.
That I never saw.
So like basically I would always like internalize like all of the emotions and all the feelings, all the teasing, to basically to save my image, basically, and that I was
Mm.
putting out. I
Because
developed a
LaDante
mask.
smiled all the time. Like he smiled all of the time. So that's all I knew was happening. Like he's happy.
And then I would snap. And when I snap, it's like people know like don't mess with him, and the storm will calm. But it just became like a really bad habit. Um, I'm getting more and more like sad about the situation. I don't know how to process the situation. my grades, they're great, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of me that's like irritated, and I'm not, for the first time in my life, I'm not really feeling good about myself, and that's why I felt from like age 10 to age 14.
Mm. I'm so sorry you went through that alone because again, this is this was unrecognized. And I think about even your younger brother. He didn't hide his anger. And so I was so focused on helping him, and addressing his situations because he would get into fights. His grades weren't the best. So he got most of my attention. I figured, okay, he's fine. He's happy. He's getting A's and B's. We're good. You know, I had no idea these other things were going on because we never had the talk. We never had and I should know better because my mom, I started off at Beasley Academic Center. And in about third grade, my mother moved me to my local school in Calumet City, where it was a mixed situation. There were some black, some white, some whatevers. And I ended up in sixth grade at a school called Wentworth because we moved again. And I was the only black, along with this one other black girl, but all the whites, she was cool with all the whites because she was there first. She had already started her Valley Girl talking. I wasn't Valley Girl talking, not fully. I somewhat, but not enough, I guess. And she, instead of them picking with her, she got them to pick with me. I don't know if she got them too, but she sided with them. Okay, I'll put it to you like that. But when I saw her, I recognized her because she went to my old school. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even call her name. And when I saw her, I felt relieved. But unfortunately, like I said, she sided with them. Fast forward, I told my grandmother about what I was going through with the racism, being attacked, with being teased, bullied. We didn't even use the word bully back then. And my grandmother told my mother. My grandmother was a teacher. She was a teacher's aide, but she was running a damn classroom. And she was a sharp dresser, by the way. So was my mom and my aunt. My grandmother told my mother. My mother took me to Soul Queen on Stony Island and said, listen, I brought you here for a reason. I missed school that day. I was like, what is going on? So I was afraid of my mother. She said, I want you to tell me everything that's happening at that damn school. And I don't care if you curse is what she said. I don't care if you curse. I want to know everything. I want every name, and I was like, what is going on? And then she broke it down to me. She said that my grandmother had shared with her what I had shared with her. I still didn't feel comfortable telling my mother because I had been internalizing it for so long. So me of all people should have been able to recognize that you were going through your own storm. Except I used an outlet. I used my grandmother. And my mother took me to let it out. And when I told her, she transferred me immediately. I went back to Beasley. And I was so happy. I was like, oh, it was like a fish out of water. And I was back in my pond. It was great. And I returned. I wasn't the cool kid anymore. I was teased and bullied. But I'd rather be bullied by my own at that point because I had never seen what I was dealing with. But for you, I am apologizing to you for not recognizing what you were going through and you having to go through it alone.
Yeah, it's just kind of tough because I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I don't even know like what it means to like have help like that because like what could really be done in that type of situation. It's like, at least from my heuristic, right? Like I'm just used to internalizing everything. It became a process that I just learned. It became a skill, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got used to it, and the more pressure I could take on, a lot more. But in those outbursts, what happened? Things started to kind of recover, when we moved again to the next zone. But towards that end,
Yeah,
that's
because
when
you all went to school in Schaumburg at that point.
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was like, we're out of here. But the reason why we moved in the first place from Utopia, Skokie, was because I wanted to buy us a house. And I couldn't buy a house out there. They were like 250, 300. We're talking about back in the late 90s. It wasn't happening. Alex Sabali had a beautiful home,
hmm
but they got that. And I was like, I knew I couldn't. That's the homes they had out there. So what I did was I went ahead and purchased where my money could go, and it put us in a situation that I was not even aware of. So my mom luckily lived in Schaumburg, and she said, "You know what? The boys can go to school out here." And I was like, "Okay," mainly for Lakari, but you ended up going too, even though I didn't know there was an issue. What was that like, going from Black people, people that look like you, putting you down, tearing you apart, ripping you apart, pulling the rug from under you, making you not notice or not recognizing the beautiful person that you had been indoctrinated to be, not to mention being a leader? What was it like going from people that look like you to back to people that don't look like you?
right. So now we're in Schaumburg. Schaumburg is majority Jewish and Polish and German. So I went to school, and a guy on the at the school calls me the N word. He had freckles, like white guy. He called me an N word on the football field, and I'm used to people talking stuff about me. It's
At that
you
point.
know, but then what happened was the rest of the campus heard him say it. The Jewish, the Polish, the other guys, and what they did, like I saw 12 people run up and jump him and beat him up and kick him on the ground
Mm.
and stomp on him. And that was like my first time seeing, that type of, event. But what I noticed was, again, the praise came back. Everyone's praising me again for being who I am. I can say, like, looking back, I was like the token black guy, like,
Mm.
in a sense, because there weren't many black people. I think I can count like six out of a school of maybe 500 plus people. There had to be like six of us, and we were spread out between the different the years in the school. So I was like I was the first black guy at this in the band. I was in the marching band.
Mm-hmm.
So when that incident happened, it happened when we were marching on the football field,
Mm.
and his name was Corey. He was like a freckled redhead uh, type guy, and he just wanted to throw it out there.
Shame on you, Corey. You know who you are.
And they jumped him. They jumped him. I didn't have to say or do anything. And every single time they would just give me the praise, and I was always just like one of the top in terms of charisma, like how I carried myself, and just who I am. I didn't have to prove anything. I just had to just be myself. So that was like kind of reassuring to me.
Did you feel like you were back?
I didn't feel like I was back. I still felt I didn't feel like one of them, of course, because now I know what race is.
Mm.
So I still felt like, okay, well, these guys are all like white,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the only black guy here, and they do their white things, like listen to rock.
I was gonna say, what are white things?
It's like they dance to like these songs that, to me, they don't really they didn't have like much rhythm.
Mm.
I didn't sense like it wasn't much like like wit.
But
to
you
the,
went
to the
along. You went
songs.
along with it.
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we were in the marching band and we had to kind of dance when we were moving at the basketball games. But I would just like pay attention.
Were you like putting your hips into playing that trombone, like you were on a HBCU campus or field, I should say?
I actually won at freshman year. I actually won the jazz award
Mm-hmm.
at the Mundline Jazz Festival, and they also jumped me into the senior band my sophomore year.
And what does that mean?
So that basically means you like skip like
Okay,
the
because you said
grades.
jumped you before
Oh, got
or
it,
jumped
yeah.
him before, but now you're talking about you
Right.
were able to progress to the senior band. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So like
Elevate. Yeah.
I was the first to jump to go from a freshman band to the senior band
So you were promoted. Yeah.
instead of going to the sophomore band, the junior band, and you're not even guaranteed to get into the senior band. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the top band, the Wind Symphony. So it was me and another freshman, and we were really cool. Like he was like my rival during that time,
Mm.
Matt Bataco.
I remember
Um,
that name.
hmm Yeah, he was my rival, but it motivated me. Also during that time, I didn't know how to read music.
Right.
I didn't know how to read music the whole time.
And I didn't know that.
I pretty much just created my
You
own
played
system.
by ear.
I played by ear,
Mm-hmm.
and I would actually use numbers to read the music. So like that was, and I used that system to become the one of the best in my class, up to college. But we're jumping the story. But Schaumburg during that time was just a time for me to not really reclaim myself, but just to take a break from
The bullshit.
the harassment,
Yeah.
the negative comments, the
Mm-hmm.
needing to be on like defense all the time, and like that anxiety. It just started to go away a lot more. People were gravitating to me.
Mm.
That's where I started to learn like more of a community form of love.
Yeah, because you guys were doing bonfires, things that I
Hmm
never knew of, bonfires. And I remember when you went to homecoming, her name was Julie. Was it Julie?
Oh, Lindsay.
Lindsay. Gosh,
Lindsay,
I
yeah.
said Julie. I'm sorry. Yes, it was Lindsay. She was such a sweetheart, and her parents were. But that was, it's kind of shameful that you had to be pulled out of your own community. Because I don't know when it became cool to be dumb in the black community. Like when I was in school, it was cool to be smart, and that's what we were. Nobody made fun of you for talking proper. They got on you if you mispronounced a word, didn't spell it right, if you got a lower than a B. I don't understand where the shift came from unless it came from somewhere intentionally and we were playing telephone. And somehow the misfits of the world or the ones that were not as smart became more popular and more, should I say, more intentional about making everybody else feel like they should be like them. Misery loves company. But going back, you learned how to read music once you got to college. But let me ask you a question, because then the title of this podcast is, if you really want to know what type of parent you were, your kids will tell you. What was your relationship like with your mother during this time in grade school when you were getting picked on, and then in high school when you were getting somewhat a break? What was your relationship like? Because I can go back and I know what I think our relationship was like, but I want to know how it was really for you.
Um, Basically, I just had to in my mind. I had a position that I can't really share with my mom what's going on with me. I can't really be truthful to her. I had to kind of play in her world. Um, the main reason was because she was obviously going through a lot herself, and it's like my problems to me just seemed really just not significant. I just, like I said, developed that skill of internalizing
Mm.
and wearing the mask. So I just got so used and comfortable to it. It was just much easier for me. But I never. It was just hard to go to my mom for any of these situations. Not because she's not like an open person and go to it. I just didn't feel comfortable doing any of that.
And see, I was under the impression that we could talk about anything because you all talked to me about anything else. I felt like we were in tow. Like we talked about everything. To me, it was everything. But we didn't talk about that. Let me just read some of these comments. Destiny Changer says, "Good to see you, LaDante. You and Logan sound so much alike." That's his younger brother. Well, younger brother. Then the other one says, "Being a shield sometimes causes hindrance." Yes, it does. So in parenting, when you're trying to shield your children, you're actually hindering them. I get it now. Then he says, "Being a parent is not being perfect. Being a parent is always a process of practicing." And you telling me. And then Michael Woods says, my man, what's up? And then Michael Wood says, that's one of the smartest young men I ever met. Yeah. He remembers the time you showed him some, I think it was a math problem or something. Like he reminds me every time we bump into each other that you were like you were breaking it all the way down. In fact, my father also spoke highly of you growing up, saying that he never needed to know what his change was going to be at the cash register because by the time they tell him the total and he gives them the money, you already knew how much change he was getting. And I remember quite a few things. You read a lot. You played games a lot. You did. It was to a point where you would be sleepy in the daytime, and I was like, "Is he slipping off taking drugs?" So I remember I went and got that drug test from the drugstore.
Oh yeah, I remember that time.
But come to find out, you were playing RuneScape all night long. Yeah, I remember that. But in retrospect, RuneScape taught you about stocks.
Right. So during that time, this was when I was about
12-ish.
right when I got started.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about like fifth, sixth grade. I did make a friend before Schomburg that introduced me into RuneScape. But then I didn't really get into it until I was in Schomburg, which was when I was about I want to say like 14 to 16 around that time. So what had happened was actually I kind of developed a little addiction during that time
A little.
of staking.
We should be able to sue them. Does your child have an addiction or has he ever?
Yeah, so I didn't know this, and I'll just kind of break it down. This is an interesting story. So RuneScape was actually there was a black market that was basically part of RuneScape where you can buy and sell the virtual currency. It's kind of like the Bitcoin today. That's really where the idea of Bitcoin really came from. This RuneScape game. But what happened was there was a black market where you could buy and sell gold. So as a way to try to make money, what you would do is you would gamble inside of the game. And I had a way to just like calculate the odds so that I could win most of the time. And I developed an addiction around that to try to sell the money, to make some money. But I always threw it back into staking, which was the way you did it. But in that process, I pretty much lost all the money. I was neutral. But I did learn a skill in order to like understand in that time, the economy stock market. So then by the time that we had like some economy like tests for all of Illinois and I actually placed like in the top 1% just off the skills that I had learned from this video game.
So it was a learning opportunity, which is great.
Yes, it was a learning opportunity, and also it was hard to really clean that habit. It really was, but all around it, my thing was at least I developed some form of healthy community that helped to pull me out of those bad habits during that time. But whenever like I really did have a problem, like for example in the south suburbs, that's when I would try to escape to video games to try to get away from my feelings and emotions, which wasn't really healthy, but it was the best thing that I had with what I had. So that was initially my main journey, but then things kind of started to take a twist when my mom got married. That's when things really started to take a twist for me. Um, so basically during that time when she had gotten married, that was the first time I watched my mom take a stance that was kind of against me, and she took a stance for obviously my stepdad during that
Against
time.
you when? How?
So we were actually working in the store, and we had some type of argument that happened between me and the stepdad.
You said the stepdad.
Yes, um, and basically during that time, I'd expected for you to take me and uh, Lakari's position, but you didn't take. You took a neutral position, but the neutral position, it didn't really benefit the position that I was saying, it almost like ignored my narrative. And during that time, I felt very, very empty
Mm.
because, out of all the people that did show me love in some form, which wasn't a lot, like a lot of people actually during that time, if they tried to show love, it was often there was manipulation in front of that love. So I learned that because sometimes I would jump into that love and I realized that they were taking more from me than I was getting from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned what like manipulative love was at an early age, but you never showed that to me ever. Well, I mean, you'll play your games, but like when you played your games, I would learn.
What game?
Like you would play like your like with your words. Like you knew how to like sweet talk and like how to talk charismatic. So
Finesse.
yes, but you never like you didn't finesse me out of like bad will. It was just like to help me, like for example, take out the trash or something, or
Encourage
make my
you.
bed, or
Yeah.
do something, some activity. It wasn't like a negative finesse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could learn from that finesse, and I my goal was just to be. I learned that skill,
Mm.
in a different, like in the form of charisma, in the form of like really getting what I want with like how I present
Wow, that
myself.
sounds manipulative, actually.
Right. So it's manipulative on one end, but it's also suggestive. So like
Mm-hmm.
there's like multiple forms of manipulation that are positive or negative, and it really just depends on the user and how they use it. But during that time, when it came to our stepdad, um, I had expected you to basically take a position that was more on my side, and when I saw you took a neutral position, and it had something to do, it was like after the college talk, and it was around like that time where we were discussing about he had said something outlandish like if you don't get any scholarships you don't go to college, and that really pissed me off because I'm thinking, you haven't been there for most of my life, so how are you going to dictate what my life is going to be? um,
Yeah, I didn't care about that comment.
and but there was some other things around that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was already a bit just fed up, and I just felt like I wasn't really getting what I need. So this is really the first time. Really, this is probably the first time that I actually felt like I needed love,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know how to process that. So what happened? I threw a tantrum. I jumped up and
Oh, I
down,
remember. Yeah. Wow.
and during that time, it's like really hard for me because I had to. I actually cut you off in my heart during that time.
Am I still cut off?
Um, I would say to a degree, yes,
Wow.
but it wasn't because of you. It's because I had to protect myself. Um, because if I continue to depend on something that I can't get guaranteed, then I'm gonna hurt expecting it. So
Hmm.
I had to cut that off to stop myself from um, to, depending on that love to to um to basically feel fulfilled. I guess is the word. I needed to find it somewhere else, and I didn't know how during that time. So I struggled a lot, like after that, especially when I went to college. I struggled a lot
Hmm.
during this time.
So I am going to give some possible advice to those parents out there based on this is the first time I'm hearing this. Um, I remember when I got married and I felt like I had again done everything right except get married first and then have kids. But since this was the situation I was in, I was already a ready-made family. And I remember asking my kids for permission. They said, "Yes, mom, do it." So we went and got the marriage license and we got married. However, the person I got married to didn't have any children, and um, they didn't have the capacity or the resources, I should say, to encompass uh, an entire ready-made family. Because you got to think, it's all of a sudden for everyone. All of a sudden, you got a wife and kids. All of a sudden, you got a husband in addition to your kids. All of a sudden, you got to share your mother with this stepdad. Like all of these things were all of a sudden, right? Now, at the time, we all know that when it comes to marriage, you're supposed to put your husband first. I find that to be impossible when you have a ready-made family. So I didn't know how to navigate that. I didn't know how to put my marriage first and put my kids first because they've always been first. And so I took a neutral stance. If anything was said outlandish, like if you don't get scholarships, you're not going to college, I didn't say anything because I already knew you going to college. I don't recall. I think we had a grocery store. Suddenly, I was a grocery store owner. And if you look at other cultures, the children work inside of the business and all of that. But the difference here is all of a sudden, you're expected to work inside of a business that you didn't ask for, didn't know existed, that you weren't a part of. And now this is your time to chip in. So when you get married in the middle of raising your children, you really have to ask yourself, at what stage is the adaptability of all? We were in the middle of, I was in a hurry to have a positive role model for my children. But it wasn't why I said yes. It was the safest choice. And I felt like, well, if I'm going to have more children, I probably better do it now because I'm in my 30s. And so all of that went through my head. I thought that because they grew up, my ex-husband grew up with a mother and a father, a hardworking father, and the mother stayed home with the kids, and which I could never do, by the way. But and she had a nanny. She was a stay-at-home mom with a nanny. Man, cold-blooded. And they owned a grocery store and property and cars and all that stuff. I figured he could pour that into my children, right? Because any woman should want her husband or the man in her life to pour into her children. Why do we pretend like we don't want that? Like, do you want somebody pouring negativity in your children? No, you want the good stuff. However, when it came to situations that he may not have been experienced in, we had already had a plan. What are you going to do? Argue with your spouse to please your kids? Or are you going to tell your kids no to please your spouse? So you just go, okay. Because you don't know how to filter that. But in your heart of hearts, you already know what you're going to do. I don't let words don't really define me. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. But they don't define me. But the problem is when you get married and you got all this going on, everybody needs to be able to jump into the double Dutch road. If they can't jump in and they just turning, it's probably not going to work out. I can tell you that. It's not. Because it's all of a sudden. It's ready-made. And there's no way you can pray to two gods. There's no way you can please everybody, including in your household. Now, had he been your father, like if that was your daddy, you grew up knowing what his expectations were, and he grew up knowing what your plans and dreams were, then everything would have turned out probably maybe differently. There's no guarantee on any setup that anybody's going to turn out better than they didn't or they did. That's what I want to say. But looking back, hindsight, I'm like, man, that was a lot. Because not only was that a lot for you, I was a lot for me because, and I'm not trying to turn it around. It's just I remember what was going through my head because I was already, when we got married, I got pregnant. And I had a Logan. So now I got this kid I don't know, these two kids I've known pretty much all my life, seemingly. And and this husband that I'm getting to know. Because, you don't know your husband till you've been with him for 20 years. I mean, it was a lot. So I'm here to say that I thought it was a good decision. Maybe it was a good decision and it just didn't pan out. Maybe there wasn't enough time to build a relationship, a bond. But in that short amount of time, because you were on your way to college at some point, the bond had been broken. The possibility of a bond had been broken. And all I tried to be was a filter for everyone. I wanted everyone to have soft blows, soft falls. And that ain't right. It's not.
I just want to play like the a little bit of devil's advocate, right? So the truth is, yes, I did have that painful feeling in my heart, and I had to go through it. The reality also is that if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be so strong as I am today. Because, like I said earlier, I find a lot of individuals addicted to love, where it's like they need to have it in order to feel fulfilled. And when I was able to cut off the person that meant like the most to me during that time, not and I wasn't being selfish with it. I saw that my mom, of course, my mom deserves happiness too. I've watched her since she was young, just work all day and not really have that for herself as well. I watched her get treated wrongly for being a 16-year-old and then an 18-year-old single mother. So of course, my mom deserves to have someone that makes her feel fulfilled. I'm about to leave the house. I'm 18 at this point, so it's my time to exit anyway. But it's gonna hurt. But now it starts a new journey. But and skipping forward, can we skip forward, mom, or should we go to college?
Sure.
All right, so skipping forward
I'm
towards,
in school right now.
I'm gonna skip college. College was a for me just tough. It was really tough. I was going through it. I went through a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors that really wasn't me looking, but it was me during that time. I was in a lot of pain. I was pretty much I didn't have anything that would help me feel fulfilled. I started chasing alcohol, women. My grades slipped a lot. My degree changed a lot. I went from math to actual science to chemistry. I was pre med. Um, Went out the country, still trying to find meaning in my life. Then I started doing these just amazing jobs, but still didn't find that fulfillment. And then eventually, I just reached a point where I realized that no one's gonna make me feel that type of fulfillment like on the outside. Basically, no one's gonna give me the love that I can give my own self, like ever. And that was the lesson that I find that a lot of uh, people I know that are way like more experienced than me, they just haven't really kind of captured that lesson. They're still chasing that. So basically, what I started developing was a skill in order to just get whatever I want and just create the reality that I want. So now I'm at the point where I don't depend on nobody for what I need or what I want in my life. I just go and get it. And I appreciate that skill set over like, you know, the love from someone else and all that other stuff. Like I just to me everything can be broken. But what I instill inside of myself, it's up to me to break that or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the advocate I want to play to that narrative. You know, and like I said earlier, a lot of times people want to live someone else's story.
Mm.
People want to wish that their story was different or better. But I've been through all of that. What I realize is better to just embrace and accept your story as it is
Mm-hmm.
and see what is the root cause, the root truth to actually get the prize to move forward. I learned this in college. The one thing I did take away from college was an African American studies class. I enrolled in that finally. Now I'm learning about Black history a little bit. But they said something called Sankofa, which is basically this swan that's able to look backwards in order to go forward. And that was the phrase. In order to move forward, you gotta look back at your past to move forward. And what I realized was that every step that was in my story, it needed to happen how it happened. I needed to experience all those lessons for me to arrive at the conclusion of where I am right now, which is that I can have and do and be anything that I want. And no adversity. I faced so much adversity about being black. It's never broken me. It's only made me stronger. And I've actually used the system against itself. If people have low expectations of me because I'm black, me knowing that, it just makes it that much easier for me to be remembered in their eyes. Because not to toot my own horn, because I'm not like that. It's just I'm a well polished individual. So seeing me and like how I communicate and how I just get things done no matter what, that impresses a lot of people. So I actually coined back when I stayed in China that I have black privilege. I watched people that were white just not get the same opportunities that I did because they weren't rememberable. They were white. Like people expect them to perform well. So how do you what's going to be the difference in terms of that threshold to actually be exceptional? You need to be like almost like God for in the eyes of the white man to be remembered. But for a black man, if they already have these super low expectations of you and you're just average, that threshold from super low to average is quite great. So it's easy to be remembered. So I use that to my advantage to get what I want, to get noticed in a room. I would play the cards well. I would be charismatic. Anything I wanted, I would just go ahead and get it. I wouldn't even have to try so hard as I see other people trying. So I think it really is about how you spin your narrative. You can either be the victim, in which you'll be the victim. You could be the healer, the helper. That's always I was the people pleaser at a time for a very long time. You could be that, and you end up empty, or you could be the hero of your own story. And I chose to be the hero. I chose to get everything and anything that I want, and it's all because of the hard lessons. And at the end of the day, I just want the best for me and my family, and my friends and my associates and my enemies. I pray for my enemies too, every single day, because we could all go down that slippery slope. We could all go to that slippery slope to that second death, really, which is the worst, where people don't even remember your name. They don't even tell the stories of who you are. So I just try to understand, to recognize, accept that this is what it is. Everyone's going on their own journey to accepting their own story and evolving themselves. And we've all been there. I don't isolate myself from nobody in the sense of, oh, I'm better than them. I don't feel that way because I've been in the lowest point of my life where I just really felt like I was on the verge of just, man, suicide, really. Like it hurt me so much. But I got out of that, and it made me stronger. It made me like, the worse the journey is, the more pain you have, you come out of that, the greater that story will be. So now I understand that, I accept that. And now I'm more of a patient man. Like I just understand that whatever I want, what I truly want, I actually, the way I see it, I can have anything that I barely want anything anymore. Like it's like, that's a skill I have. So
And we want what we can't have. And if we feel like we can have anything, well,
we don't want nothing.
right.
It's like, that's where I am right now.
what
Um,
are
yeah.
what are some of the things that what are some good takeaways? Because I need to pick me up right now.
Oh, okay. Well, the truth is, Mom, you really did prepare me for life. Like it wasn't a joke. You like our life story tested me on everything that I basically needed to take to be phenomenal in life. Like it's at the point where, um, it's almost instinctual, like how to be and like how to recognize certain behavioral patterns. Um, so I've learned a lot, just like being with you, not from your words, but the experience of being with you. So I'll always be grateful for that. People want a loving mother. To me, I believe that love, like even the definition of love, is subjective. Like it depends on how you want to define love. If it's just saying I love you and hugs, okay, that's maybe one person's definition. But for me, love truly is like preparing for this nasty world that's out there, because this nasty world out there wants to take your life. It wants to take your soul, your spirit, but it can't take mine because my mom loved me in a way where I'm prepared for the world. Like that's really what it is. So,
Like ready for the world?
prepared. Like nothing can break me. Like I nothing can break me. Any type of force of negativity can never break me. I could always look at that force like the bully and break it down. I could have that force actually be scared of me. And I've been in many of those situations, and like that's just how I am. I'm just able to accomplish and do anything I want, and I am the example and I'm your first son, mom. Like, I just want to say, if you want to pick me up, just watch me go to the top and be the best. Like, that would be the best pick me up ever. Like, you created an amazing son. So
Well, that has been my expectation of you since the beginning. But, I definitely want to, it's not that I want to take credit for your success. I want to make sure that you know that my intentions in raising you were to make sure that you could live your best life. Even when you were with me, I wanted you to live your best life. And it's not about it wasn't easy. I don't think it's ever easy. I don't think it's easy if you have a husband or a wife. It's not going to be easy. But I want you to know that everything that I decided to do, it was because I wanted you and your brother and brothers to have the best life that I could possibly give you. You know what I'm saying? Again, you're watching the LaDonna Raeh show. I'm sitting here with my son, my oldest son, my eldest son, LaDante. And yes, he was kind of named after me. I know she just named him after her. Well, I liked the name Dante. And I wanted us to have L's and I put La in front of it. But did you know that?
no, that's great.
Yeah.
Great to know.
And because you were my first, you didn't come with a manual for some reason. I checked. There was no QR code, no website, nothing. You just came. And we had to figure it out. And I feel like we grew up together. We grew up together, even though we were mother and son. And thank you for helping me to grow up. Thank you for teaching me so many things. I learned a lot from being your mother. Thank you for pushing me without pushing me. Thank you for loving me. Because I was under the impression you always loved me. And that's what I needed, because you're right, it was difficult to be or to feel loved when you've made such a what the world looks at as a mistake. We're taught that you should finish school, get married, have children, right? It doesn't always go in that order. And sometimes when you mess up the order, you don't feel that there's any redemption. Like, okay, I messed up. Not that you were a mess up. You get what I'm saying. You're old enough now. But you go, I messed up. And then you mess up again. And it's like, well, there's no point. And you can't right your wrongs. So let me just keep going and hopefully give the love that I need to my children so that they can be providers and not be the young men that weren't there for them. It's almost like I say, be the brother you want to have. Be the son you want to have. Be the person you want to be around. Live your legacy now, don't wait. Those are things that I always said. I always had these isms. And they were important to me because I wanted them to be important to you so that you could be that societal individual that was in a leadership position, that didn't have to follow the masses that would take you down the wrong path. And I felt like as long as you didn't have a baby at a young age, because I think I feel like I scared you all. I said, look, you have a baby. If you get somebody pregnant, that baby gonna come live with you. I remember saying that. And she gets to go on and live her life. Well, I don't have any grandkids, but everything was a teachable moment. And I remember asking if you guys wanted to have a fun household. You want to have a fun household or not? You all were like, we want to have a fun household. I said, okay, there's some rules. And the rules are, you got to follow the rules and then we can have a fun household. So I always made sure that we had fun. The story you told about when I when we didn't have a refrigerator or a stove, and I would come home. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was hoping you all would get full so I could eat the rest. Yes, I was hungry, but I had to give you all had to eat. And I was against. I'm like, I'm gonna go to work. So going to work, I didn't get food stamps at that time. Don't get me wrong. I went and got them eventually because the pride just had to fall. But I had to work with what I had, and I'll never forget. I was working for a property management company. It was called FJ Property Management Company. And the man's name was Freddie Jackson, not the Freddie Jackson, but he was kind of cockeyed. I think he was missing a finger. You all know him. Somebody knows him. Well, I was supposed to get paid. They paid me with a check and it bounced. I was so mad. They knew it was going to bounce. So when it bounced, all my stuff bounced because back then you wrote checks. I don't write checks anymore. But that was a lesson. My mother came to my job to kind of help me through the situation. And I just remember wanting to fight because it wasn't just me. This is like my kids' money. I don't think I've ever had a paycheck where it was just all mine. Not in 31 years. So, or 30, how old are you? 33. Mm-hmm. Okay, 33 years. So I've been a mother for 33 years. I had you when I was 5. But my point is, I want you to know that thank you for bringing me joy, love, learning lessons, shielding me from danger, because I know I was supposed to go out a few times and I didn't go and there was a shootout and I'm glad I didn't go because I didn't have a babysitter. That was you right there. You saved my life. But I also want to thank you for allowing me to pour into you. Allowing me to be heard. Those 2-hour talks. I remember when your stepfather was like, okay, they heard you. And Lakari or you, one of you said, no, she's not done. You remember that? We were sitting at the table and you all were like, no, let her finish. I just continued on and on and on. But, thank you for trusting my judgment, allowing me to bring you a stepfather. It did not work out, but I want to thank you for even trusting the situation. Thank you for going to church with me on Sundays. Thank you for going through my transitions, because you watched me blossom from being a young mother into being a woman. And thanks for gassing me up by saying, Mom, you still look the same. Thank you for being honest with me. I never felt like I had a liar of a son. Thank you for the hugs that you gave me, the kisses on the cheek, forehead. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mom. I really, like I said, I don't believe in excuses. I genuinely believe I have the best mom. At least for my life, I'm blessed. I feel like it's like the lottery. The reason I say that is
a
because
scratch off or the ticket.
Really, it's like winning the lottery for me, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have arrived at the conclusion that I have. That's really in my spirit. That really just makes up like how I am. Going back to the original question, who am I? Mm-hmm. I genuinely do have the answer to that question, but I actually made a pledge to myself that I would not speak on who I am. I would show who I am.
Just be who you are.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's the new game I play within myself, and it's quite fun. It basically just all that pain, like all the stories that I shared. In reality, I look back at that character, and he didn't know what he had. He genuinely didn't. He didn't know like the power that was within him.
Speaking of power, I remember when I took you bowling that day, and you threw that bowling ball down the aisle like it was cotton. I was like, where did he get all that strength from? You had to be like 14. It was like, whew. I was like, whoa. And it wasn't like a lightweight ball. Jeez.
I look at a lot of people that just they don't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't figure it out till they die. But I figured it out, and like I'm enjoying life right now. Like I can lose everything tomorrow, it wouldn't matter because I can always just start over and be better, stronger, more amazing in so many different forms. But I don't think I would have gotten there so quickly if it wasn't for the experiences that I had, like especially with your mom. Like I'm very simple. I was having a conversation with my brother Lakari, and I was just saying, like with mom, I'm just grateful like that she's beautiful, because I have her looks. That's and she also has that wit, and knows how to work a room, and I have that ability. Like with that, to me, with looks and that type of ability, what else do you really need? You can get everything yourself. So that's generally how I feel. Like if the world is about collecting resources and creating opportunities for others, well, I mean, and that's what gives fulfillment. Just play the game. So I just enjoy playing the game.
Mm. All right. Well, I told you that we would only go about a half hour, and it's been an hour and 30 minutes, about an hour and 27 minutes. I really want to thank everyone who commented, watched, shared this particular episode because this was near and dear. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because I'm going to be talking about parenting as it pertains to being a parent of adult children and minor children and your own parents, okay? Because I'm like almost parenting my parents right now. And I didn't want to come on to any platform like I am the subject matter expert that made no mistakes. I want to discuss my recommendations openly and truthfully. And I also wanted this opportunity to use this mirror because almost in this moment right here, right now, you can mark it on your in the history books. I know the missing piece, well, one of the missing pieces of who I am because of you. So thank you.
That's deep.
All right. So see you next time on the LaDonna Raeh Show. You guys can catch me Monday through Thursday on WVON 1690, which can be also heard on, or which can also be heard on iHeartRadio. Just tell your smart device at home, I don't want to say her name, to tune in to WVON Chicago, and you can hear the afternoon show from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. It's called The Afternoon Show with Atiba and LaDonna Raeh. We'll be doing segments like these. Thursday is Relationship Thursday, and this was quite a relationship conversation. My beautiful, handsome son and myself, we out. LaDante, any final thoughts?
Hey, I just hope that everyone watching feels the same about their own story. Really, it's a release. Like it just the moment I let go, like everything started to come. But every time I had an excuse for something, why I was a victim, it just never seemed to work. I was always chasing a fallacy. So I just hope that, you know, I really hope that this helped if it did, or just someone had an epiphany. But, I just want the best for you all, like all of us. We all deserve to win.
Well, let's win. All right. And those of you that didn't know, you can always call us live when we go live at 312-357-5141. Okay. Bye-bye for now, and continue to comment, share, and like. Subscribe. Bye. I'm LaDonna Raeh.
Bye, guys.
the one and only sexy mama, LaDonna Raeh.